Hey everybody, and welcome to Ages Cozy Crochet Corner, where today on the corner we're going to be working up a mommy and me blanket. So what this is where I take like blanket, chunky yarn, and I just make a simple throw for mommy and baby to share together. So I'm working on baby things, and with my baby things, I like to include the mommy and me blanket. Now you can make this blanket larger if you want to. You can make it a throw. You can make it for a twin, a king, whatever you want to. You just going to grab your blanket yarn, a size 10 hook, and I'm using about 4 blanket yarns. I'll give you the amount in the description box of what I'm using. So let's get our chunky yarn and let's get our big hooks and let's make a mommy and me blanket. Hey everybody, so we're at the table now, and I have my big yarn right here, my super bulky 6, and I went and rolled up all 4 of them just to make it easier to work with. And we'll be working this with a 10 millimeter hook. Okay, so we can do this blanket in any kind of yarn, but for the super big we're using that. We have our scissors, and this is a Bernat baby blanket yarn, and again I'm using 4 of them. It's super bulky 6, and there are 220 yards in this one ball. So let's get this out the way. And in order to begin, I want to leave a tail long enough to weave in later on, and I'm just going to twist that. And I'm going to show you again. I'm going to take my hook and place it behind my yarn and just twist it. Then I want to grab my yarn and chain 1 and push up. Okay, so now that I have a start going, I want to chain up 100 for the mommy and me blanket. So only 100 for the mommy and me blanket. If you want to do this blanket larger, then you would chain more. This pattern does not work in any multiples of anything, so just feel comfortable to chain the length that you want. Now that I have my chain and my desired length, we're just going to be making simple single crochets all the way down this chain. So I do not want to go into the first chain from my hook. I want to go into the second. So I'm going to place my hook into the second chain from the hook, grab my yarn and pull up and take that off. Okay, into the next one we're going to go in, grab our yarn, pull up and take off too. So we're making single crochets all the way down. Grab our yarn, pull up and grab more yarn and take off too, and we'll be doing that all the way down our first row. So we're going in, grabbing our yarn, pulling up, grab our yarn again and take off too. So this is a single crochet, and again we'll be doing that all the way down our whole first row till we get to our last chain on our hook. So finishing up for this row, we should have 99 single crochets. If you have made this larger, then you should have 1 less than the amount that you chained. Okay, so there we have it. Now our second row is going to be slightly different. We're going to chain 1 at the end of every row and turn our work. Now that chain 1 counts as nothing, so we're going to go right back into that first stitch, but we want to hold it like this, and you see that looks like V's all the way down. You have the front part of your stitch and we have the back part of your stitch, and we're going to take and put our hook inside that little V shape and go into that back loop. Grab our yarn, pull up, grab our yarn and take the 2 loops off of our hook. And we're going to do that all the way down this row, going into the back loops only. And watch your tension on this. We don't want to make everything too tight. We want to still keep it nice and snug and smooth. And we're going to keep going all the way down, placing our single crochets in the back loop only. Now the only thing that's going to be different is when we get to our last stitch, we will be placing our last stitch through both loops. So until then, single crochet and the back loop only. And you see it creates a nice little ridge pattern right there. And we'll continue this for the rest of our work, but I'm going to show you that last stitch. Okay, so we keep going on with our back loop only single crochets. And now that we are coming up to the end, I want to make sure we go over this last stitch so you can see that the last stitch is done through both loops. So I have gotten to my last stitch, okay, and I want to go inside my last stitch. I have 2 loops on my hook. Grab my yarn and pull through, grab more yarn and take off the last 2. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. And remember, we chain 1 at the end of every row and we go right into that very first single crochet. Back loop only, single crochets. So we're going to continue this up all the way to the end of the row, and at the end of the row we will put our single crochets into both loops. And we can see our ridge pattern still developing, and it'll show even more as we keep going on. Now I'm coming up to the end of this row, and as you see, this pattern is very simple with our single crochets in the back loop only, except when we have our last stitch. Our last stitch is going to be through both loops. So you look at that, and instead of just going through the back, we're going to go through both loops. Chain 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to reach and we're going to go into that first stitch again. Grab our yarn, pull up, and grab our yarn and take off 2. And we're going to keep going down this whole entire row just like that, just working in the back loops until we get to our final stitch. And our final stitch will be through both loops. We can see from this small sample how it's going to grow. Because it's blanket yarn, it will grow rather fast. We're going to keep going on, and I'm going to keep going down this row, and I'll meet you back once I've finished with this ball to show you how to add on another ball. Okay, so I've quite a few rows completed here, and now that I'm at this point, I've finished one ball, and I want to add on my new yarn. So I'm going to add my yarn on my finger, leaving a long enough tail to be able to weave it in later on. And now I want to go ahead and take out my last single crochet to give me more space. So when I add on new yarn, I want to actually go through that back loop, grab my yarn and pull up. Now at this point, I would just grab my yarn and pull the 2 off, but I'm going to add my yarn from my finger on and use that to pull my yarn through the 2 loops. Now that's adding on that new yarn, and all I have to do is keep making my single crochets. So if you run out of yarn when you're ready to chain 1, just take out that last single crochet and do as I just did. just add your yarn on once you have your 2 loops on your hook, and use that new yarn to pull through your 2 loops. I'm going to continue until I finish my blanket, and then I'll come in and I'll show you how I weave in my ends with a smaller size hook. And don't forget to go into both loops when we get to our last single crochet. Chain 1 and turn your work and start again in that first stitch. Okay, so I am back in. I have totally finished my whole blanket. I have 79 rows here. Okay, and it turned out pretty nice. I have a good sized little ball left over. Let me show you. It's not too much. All I have to do now is just cut my yarn, chain 1, and pull through here. This is the little ball that I had left. And much of nothing to work. It wouldn't go all the way down a complete row. So once I couldn't do that, I just stopped. So I've already cut my yarn here. I got a little extra while changing camera positions and cut. So I just want to go through that last stitch, both loops, and make my single crochet. Now that I have my single crochet, I want to chain 1 and pull this all the way through, and then pull that tight, and we're all done. So now I want to show you how I'm going to weave in my ends. I'm going to take a smaller hook. This is a 6mm hook, and we're going to find one of the places where we need to weave in our ends. Pick a middle place here. And what I like to do is where I have joined my yarn, stop one and started another to make a knot. Okay, so I made a knot once, and because this is so fluffy, I don't feel like it'll be seen. I'm actually going to make 2. I don't want to pull tight where I'm drawing all of that in, but I want to make it so it's tight. Now I'm just going to take my yarn and I'm just going to pull it through, and instead of weaving back and forth with a yarn needle, because this is too big, I'm just going to weave it back and forth with my hook. So once I've gone enough, few different spots, I had to see where I was at. Once I go through a couple different areas and pull this yarn through, I want to lay it flat. It's not seen. I'm going to keep going down just a little bit more. You can zigzag this and place it how you would feel comfortable. And once I have it all, and you see, you really can't see that right there, and that's going to be good enough for me. And once I finish, I just want to grab my scissors, and I'm just going to cut it off at the base. Now we're going to go around our whole piece, and we're going to do the same thing around the whole piece, ends and all, and then we are completely and utterly done. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. As always, thank you for coming to the corner. Don't forget to share pics with me of your mommy and me blankets, or throw blankets, or just chunky bed spreads, whatever you decide to do with this pattern. Share pics with me. I love to see them. As always, you guys, thank you for coming to the corner, and I will see you soon.